So, blockchain. How many of you have heard of blockchain? Quite a few. Okay, great. So this is going to be a very brief overview of what blockchain is and what it actually means for distributed systems. So if we think about blockchain, it's a lot about removing the need for intermediaries. A lot of people think that it can remove, for example, central banks and things like that. So if we think about it, previous generations of digital technologies have been about the exchange of data and information and how we can do that faster and more securely. It's a process that's been going on in the world since the 1960s, as I'm sure you're all very aware. We've had the IT inside everything revolution, we've had mobile, and we've got now the IoT revolution ongoing as well, where we're putting sensors into everything. So blockchain really is just another part of that digital disruption evolution. However, it gives us something really unique. Blockchain is about the exchange of value. It's about how you exchange assets with one another. And what that means is instant, decentralized, and pseudonymous value transfer is now possible. And that is a huge change in the way that we can construct applications on the internet. So traditionally within our society, we have trust created through intermediaries. For example, the central bank. So Bitcoin obviously is intended to replace the central bank. But we also have a lot of other sort of intermediaries. Lawyers, for example, create contracts between companies. We have real estate agents. And another aspect is the firm itself. So the company acts as an aggregator of human resources, capital, and financing, basically. So the idea here is, can we remove these intermediaries and replace them with a decentralized and digitalized form of trust? So blockchain is very worrying to lawyers, for example. We have many people coming into our center basically very worried that blockchain changes their business model from being a charge per hour to a charge per item, which means they start to not really earn so much money. So they're very worried about that, which is why I kind of like this technology. So let's have a very brief overview of blockchain. What is it? Effectively, from a very simple perspective, it allows untrusting parties with interests, shared interests, to co-create a permanent, unchangeable, and transparent record of exchange and processing without relying on a third party. So one thing to note here is the term blockchain and distributed ledger, they're often used interchangeably, but they're not always the same thing. So who's heard of distributed ledgers? Okay, it's less than blockchain. That's quite interesting. Okay. So there are a wide range of distributed ledgers. We can see here, we talk about three different archetypes, really. So on the right, you can see we have permissioned private and shared systems, and on the far left, we have permissionless public shared systems. So permissionless public shared systems means that everybody can become a node on the network, everyone can write to the network, and everyone can read every transaction on the network. So even if you're not a member of the network, you can see every transaction that's ever been made on the blockchain for Bitcoin, for example. We see here Ethereum and Bitcoin. But we also have something called the permissioned private shared systems, and an example of that is the Hyperledger initiative from the Linux Foundation. What that means is you are whitelisted to become a member of the network, and you have to have permissions as well in order to be able to read the transactions. A key aspect of this kind of system is that you can actually form private channels between different parties when it's necessary. We also have a hybrid in the middle, which is usually permissioned public shared systems, and those are very useful, for example, when you're talking about regulatory environments. So let's say you're in the insurance industry and you wish to create a shared ledger to exchange information around insurance transactions. You would always want the regulator to be able to have access to that information, but not necessarily read and write from it. They would be able, not write to it. They would be able to read it. And the reason for that is regulatory requirements. So the idea is they would like to make sure there's no collusion and that there's no cartel formation. So those are the kind of hybrid systems we have.